Hi guys, welcome back to another Bourbon Santa video. Today we're doing Penelope, their new American light whiskey, 13 years old, MGP juice. It's an American light whiskey. So, what that means is it's a light whiskey, which is distilled at a very different proof point than bourbon, and it's the textbook definition is where you're taking bourbon ingredients, basically, and distilling them and stripping out lots of flavors and making it kind of like a vodka. But then you can take and age that and kind of build flavors back in, and you don't have to strip all the flavors when you're making light whiskey. But the original definition, that's what it was. That's kind of how it was. It was to compete with vodka when the American bourbon market was way down years ago. And it's kind of having a resurgence right now. There's a lot more distilleries that are getting into light whiskey because of the other stuff that you can do with it. Now, this is an American light whiskey, and what that means is this was aged in second fill bourbon barrels. So these barrels, we don't know what they held before this. I have a kind of a suspicion from the notes, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. This is 128.4 proof, and it's made up of corn and malted barley. They don't tell us the exact proportions of the corn and malted barley, but we'll see what we can figure out from the palate on this thing. We'll see if it's got a lot of barley or a little. So let's dive right into this. This is pretty awesome. Basically, this is a Founder's Reserve type release. So the owners of Penelope purchased some barrels, and it doesn't say how many barrels, but this is more than one. This is a blend. So this is a blend of barrels of light whiskey from MGP. One thing that I always find interesting about light whiskey is it moves in the glass differently than bourbon. It's thinner isn't the right word, but it does move thinner, but it also is super, I don't know. I mean, this isn't a very great way to describe it, but it almost moves like gasoline. You know how gasoline just is weird and shimmery, and it kind of moves funny when you're swirling it around, you know, in a glass before you drink the gasoline. It's just a little odd the way it looks. This kind of reminds me of gasoline in the way that it moves in the glass. Now, hopefully it doesn't taste or smell like gasoline, but let's find out. Let's dive right into it. Vanilla, like over the top vanilla. And it's like dark, rich vanilla, like it's been barrel aged, and like the really dark vanillas that you'll find, the expensive kind. I get quite a lot of barley on the nose, so I think this is a pretty good percentage of malted barley in there. I wouldn't be surprised if there's fairly high barley percentage. There's a smoky note that's very linked with the cinnamon note. So it's like a smoky cinnamon. I get a hint of a melon, like a green honeydew-esque melon note. And it's got like the burnt sugar, crispy part of a creme brulee. I get that part of the note. They call creme brulee as a tasting note on the bottle. I don't get the creamy part of the creme. I get the crusty bit on top. And although it's not in the mash bill, and this could just be my imagination, just my imagination once again, running away with me. But I think I smell rye. Now, it could just be a different note that's reminding me of rye, or it is possible that this was aged in rye barrels. I would not be surprised. because it trips me out because I smell rye. Maybe I'm crazy, but I get the same rye note on this rum that I have that was aged in rye barrels for like 5-6 years, and the rye barrels were very old rye barrels, and holy smoke, it gives you such a rye note that when I first tasted that rum, I thought it was a rye whiskey. So, and I get a very similar note. So it's either my imagination or this could have been aged in rye barrels, which would be amazing and interesting. Anyway, let's skip on to the palate. I tried this yesterday, and that was right after I cracked it, and it was the neck pour, fresh crack. And my first sampling of this, I wasn't super impressed with the palate. And my buddy Kelsey told me, give it some time, let's get some air in the bottle, get some air in the whiskey, and see if it improves, because light whiskeys benefit typically from a little bit of air. And he's not wrong. And so that's what I've done. And the palate, it's much better than yesterday. I get both that dark, rich vanilla, that dark barrel-aged vanilla, and I also get artificial vanilla at the same time. I get both. And that rye note is there on the palate. Maybe it's not rye, whatever, don't at me. But it tastes like a hint of rye. And it smells like a hint of rye. So wouldn't that be crazy? Wouldn't that be awesome? If these were aged in rye barrels, they should be advertising that, because that's a really cool feature. Sweet oak. It drinks hot, but not so hot that it's like blowing you out. It drinks like it's 128 proof, but it's not like really beating you down and throwing you around and giving you a bad time. Now, this was sent to me by one of my wonderful patrons, Alex Deal. Thank you so much for this bottle. Holy smoke. I'm still hunting for your bottle for the trade. Anyway, I don't remember what he said this cost. It wasn't outrageous. Less than 100. But is it worth that? I have a comparison. Now this is another 13-year MGP light whiskey. This one was bottled by Cat's Eye and put out, and this one was a Sugar Daddy, was its name, and it's a specific individual barrel. So I figured we should probably compare. We should compare this to this. And this bad boy is 68.5% alcohol. So this is slightly higher, but not by much. Not by much. So basically, this is a single barrel, 13-year MGP light whiskey compared to a 13-year small batch product, I guess you'd have to call that, because it's not a single barrel. Let's see if this little Cat's Eye holds up to the Penelope. Now this one, I believe I paid $50-something for this one. So very similar on the nose. The Cat's Eye is slightly darker vanilla. Okay, let's try Cat's Eye. Cat's Eye drinks hotter. Cat's Eye drinks like with a lot more alcohol than the Penelope does. And the Penelope has that rye-esque note that this doesn't. Yeah, this is ringing brighter and hard to describe, but more clear. And this hits me with that little rye note, or rye-like note, that I'm really appreciating. This also, I think, has more corn, less barley than the Penelope does. The Penelope, I get more of that malted barley on the nose and palate. Okay, the Penelope is more interesting and a little better. Not by a ton, though. This is a fantastic drink. They're both fantastic drinks. So, would I buy another Penelope 13 year? Yes, I would. I would buy another one of these to store in the collection and save for the future or whatever. I would buy another one at under $100. Under 100. I don't think I would pay more than 100 for this. But that's heckin' fantastic. Wow. Thanks for watching, guys. Thank you, Alex Deal, for sending me this beautiful bottle. Thank you, Mike Medlin, for my Glen carrier. How cool is this freaking thing? Look at this. Holds a crap ton of Glens, and it just makes it easier for moving them from my shelf to the table here when I'm shooting tastings, and it's going to make it easier for going back and forth to the sink for cleaning. So thank you so much, Mike, for that. Thank you, Alex, for this. Thank you for watching. And until next time, have a great day.